And then I'm going to mute so that Representative Toole and Representative Downs has a chance to listen without reverb. All righty, you're up and running.
Okay, good morning. This is the State and Local Government Committee. It is February 22nd, 2021. It is 10 a.m. We are holding a number of public hearings on several LDs as they are noticed publicly. The first one is LD 153, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Maine to change the number of legislators required to approve a constitutional amendment. It is, do we have the sponsor, Representative Marianne Kinney here?
Senator Baldacci, we have a couple of housekeeping measures first, among other things, explaining how we're doing our public hearings and also having everybody introduce themselves so members of the public know who we are.
Okay, so why don't we start with the introductions, and then Representative Matlack, I'd ask you just to do today's intro in the public hearings. So let's start with Representative Lynn Copeland.
Good morning. My name is Lynn Copeland, and I am a representative for District 14, which is downtown in coastal Saco.
Good morning. Representative Sean Paulus.
Good morning. I'm Representative Sean Paulus. I represent House District 52, which is all of the city of Bath.
Okay. Representative Mark Bryant.
Thank you, Senator. Welcome all. I'm Mark Bryant from Wyndham. I represent part of the town of Wyndham, House District 24.
Great, thank you. Representative Kathy Downs.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Chairman. I'm Kathy Downs. I represent District 130, which is Bucksport and Orrington.
Great. Okay, Representative Will Toole.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Will Toole. I represent Cutler, East Machias, Eastport, Lubec, Machias, Machiasport, Rope Bluff, Whiting, and Prescott.
Good morning. Representative Francis Head.
My name is Francis Head. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing me. My name is Francis Head. I live in Bethel and I represent District 117.
Thank you. Senator Ned Claxton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Ned Claxton, and I am proud to represent Senate District 20, which includes all of Minot, Mechanic Falls, New Gloucester, Poland, and Auburn.
Great. Representative Randall Greenwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Randall Greenwood. I represent House District 82, which is Litchfield, Monmouth, and Wales in both Kennebec and Androscoggin counties.
Great. Senator Kimberly Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Kimberly Rosen, Senate District 8, and I take care of the people in Bradley, Brewer, Bucksport, Burlington, Castine, Clifton, Dedham, Eddington, Great Pond, Holden, Lincoln, Lowell, Orland, Orrington, Penobscot, Verona Island, and the rest of the state of Maine.
Great. And I'm going to be, on Saturday, Senator Rosen, I'm going to be in Dedham and Lucerne, jumping in the lake for Camp Capella. So maybe you can join me. It's going to be a fundraiser for Camp Capella. So I'd love to have you join me.
Yeah, I'd love to watch that.
Representative Ann Matlack, who's my co-chair.
Good morning. I am Ann Matlack. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Creehaven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
Great. And Representative Walter Reisman, good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very good.
Yes, good. Never know from one session to another. My name is Representative Walter Reisman. I represent District 69, which is the beautiful lakes area of Bridgeton, Harrison, and Denmark.
Well,
I hear Route 9's in great shape, Will.
Route 9 is an important route between Bangor and Calais. Do you use it to go to Machias too, Will?
Yeah. No, we ride up through a connector route and then jump on Route 9 in Wesley and go all the rest of the way through.
Okay. So. And today is a public hearing on a number of bills. I think Representative Matlack, you'll read the information.
Yes, thank you.
For today, and then we can take turns in future sessions.
Okay. This meeting is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. This means that anyone who is a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People on the Zoom meeting waiting to testify cannot be seen or heard until they are called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after this meeting has concluded. If the name on your Zoom square is not the name you use to register to testify, it may be a bit of a challenge for us to
It's
identify
Randy.
you.
Randy Hall. I'm not sure that I'm supposed to be a panelist on this. I'm just here to just an attendee.
Representative Hall, if you could put yourself on mute.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
For example, if you registered as John Smith or Mary Jones, and if your Zoom screen says iPhone 6 or Dad's laptop, it may take extra effort to get you to our virtual podium. Please be patient. You should also know that it may momentarily appear as though you've been dropped from the meeting when we call you up to speak. It takes a second or two, but rest assured you will reappear, and then you will be able to provide your testimony. This format is new to all of us, and we expect that there will be unforeseen glitches and mistakes. Please be patient. We are doing our best, and we will all learn as we go along, hopefully improve along the way. A reminder to the members of the committee about use of the Zoom chat function. This function is not to be used for substantive discussions by anyone. You should know that the chat window can be viewed by any person taking part in this meeting as a participant. Participants include members of the committee, staff, and any member of the public during the time they have been promoted to participant for the purpose of providing testimony to the committee. All questions of persons testifying will be made through the chair. For each bill being heard today, I or Senator Baldacci will call on sponsors and co-sponsors to speak first. When called upon, you will be promoted from attendee to participant. After presentation by sponsors and co-sponsors, we will call on members of the public based on how they registered to testify. For the bill, against the bill, or neither for nor against the bill, but wishing to provide information. When you are called upon, you will be asked to state your name, your place of residence, and the organization you represent, if any. After you are done speaking and there are no more questions from the members, I or Senator Baldacci will return you to attendee and call upon the next person registered to testify. When you are called upon, please make sure that your microphone is not on mute. It would be greatly appreciated if, when you are done offering testimony to this committee on the bill scheduled for today, that you exit the Zoom meeting. You may continue to watch the hearing on the committee's YouTube channel. If you need to exit the meeting before being called upon to testify, please be aware that you may submit written testimony at any time by accessing the legislature's testimony submission page at www.legislature.maine.gov. This meeting is being broadcast and recorded on YouTube and can also be heard over the legislature's audio broadcast system. Any testimony you submit is public and may be posted on the legislature's website. If you have, you will have 3 minutes to speak, and we will let you know when it's time to start. Again, please keep your microphone muted until you have been called upon to speak. As Senator Baldacci mentioned, our first bill today is LD 153, followed by LD 115 and LD 321.
Thank you very much, Representative Matlack. I would also note that Representative Donna Dorr is with us. Good morning, Representative Dorr. Can you want to introduce yourself before we get going?
Thank you, Senator Baldacci. Good morning. I'm Representative Donna Dorr, coming to you live from the Cancer Center.
Thank you, Donna. Good morning. So the first item is the Representative Kinney's LD 153 regarding an amendment to the state constitution to change the number of legislators required to approve a constitutional amendment. Cheryl, who is present? Is Representative Kinney here to speak?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Representative Kinney.
Hello.
You are the sponsor. You get to go first.
Okay, sounds good. Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and distinguished members of the State and Local Government Committee. I am Representative Mary Ann Kinney of Knox, and I represent House District 99, which includes the towns of Brooks, Burnham, Freedom, Jackson, Knox, Monroe, Thorndike, Troy, and Unity. I'm here to present LD 153, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Maine to change the number of legislators required to approve a constitutional amendment. I'm just going to preface, I had emergency surgery on Saturday morning to remove a gallbladder, so I'm trying to lay low, but
Well, you're doing well, and take your time. So don't worry.
Right.
We're not in a rush, so just take your time.
It's nice to be back before this committee, even though we're not in person. So it's hard to give you guys something. Hello, Senator. I would have brought some maple goodies, but I don't know. We'll have to work on that for when we finally get back in person. So on this bill, on March 17th of 2020, the 129th legislature met to address issues related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And several legislators had chosen to be absent that day for purpose of being concerned about the virus, and rightly so. And 12, there were actually 12 that were excused prior to session and one more absent that day, and additionally, we had a vacant seat at the time. Currently, constitutional amendments only require 2/3 of those present and voting. Amending our Constitution should be something that occurs with a supermajority due to its gravity to our state. It also ensures that a partisan majority cannot make changes easily from any party. Our state is diverse with a large percentage of unenrolled voters who do not follow party lines. We must ensure that all Mainers are represented in these matters. And with only 137 of 151 members present, only 90 members were needed on March 17th. 2020 to push out constitutional amendments. Thankfully, it was brought forward that we should wait and allow members who were not present, who chose not to be in person on that day because of the virus, to be able to weigh in. And where we can't weigh in from home, it was we had to be present. So this was something that concerned me, and I realized, gee, the constitutional amendment is just present and voting. Yet we do have to have 101 for passing an emergency preamble. I believe it is, and I'm sure Lynn can help out with making sure that I'm correct in that, in verifying that we do have some issues, some instances where 101 is required, which is 2/3 elected and voting, not just the present and voting. And that's the reason I'm presenting this. The constitutional amendment to me should have as much gravity as selling pieces of state land and presenting an emergency preamble. Of course, people will still need to weigh in on these measures at the ballot box as an additional layer, which does help protect our Constitution. And I thank you for your time this morning, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Representative Kinney. Are there any questions for Representative Kinney? Seeing none. Cheryl, oh, I'm sorry, Representative Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was slow on the raise the hand button, but
You almost missed it.
and thank you, Representative Kinney, for attending today. First, a small comment, and for those wondering out in Facebook land, Representative Kinney is a maple syrup producer and a former member of this committee. Therefore, what she was referring to is bringing committee members a little bit of friendly tribute. So the question I guess I would have is, in regards to this bill, your premise, your basic idea is it should be as hard to get a constitutional amendment through the legislature as an emergency bill. Is that correct? It should be just as hard.
Yes, yeah. It just seems to me that it shouldn't be easier to put through something that changes the Constitution of our state versus just a statute that just needs, that we're trying to put in to have it go into effect the day it's signed versus 90 days after we adjourn.
And beyond that, we both were here that day, the day of the first day of the pandemic, as were other members. And by the end of the day, at least in the House, we were down to something like 118 or 120 members by the time we actually adjourned.
Right.
So it was do you remember that the same way I did?
That is my recollection. I did, the number that I mentioned was early, was when we first got into session, was we had 137 present, but I think you're right, it got down to like 118 or so by the time we adjourned for the sign of die.
Thank you.
Any other questions by any other members? Seeing none. Cheryl, anyone else here to speak in favor? I can't hear you, Cheryl.
Not that I know of, no attendee has stressed.
Okay,
wanting
anyone
to
here
be-
to speak against?
No,
Okay,
I don't
any-
see it. No.
And anyone here to speak neither for nor against?
I don't see anybody.
Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. Representative Kinney, thank you very much.
Thank
Can
you.
can I point out that Representative Toole had made a comment to us recently asking that any committee members who have questions that they would like answered for our work session, or if there's any materials they would like to receive between now and then, this is an opportunity for them to ask for it. Are there any materials or persons or information that you feel you need before we move on to the next bill?
Representative Toole, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. And I don't think we called on folks that were in support of the bill. I know we did the sponsor and then the against.
No, I asked
Oh, okay.
I asked if there was anyone else to speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Representative Lynn Copeland, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if instead of going to the end game of, putting this on the ballot and having, a vote on it to change the Constitution, are there other remedies? And that's what I would ask our analyst. Are there other ways that this could be dealt with rather than going to a constitutional amendment? I mean, tabling or, I don't know. And I would ask for that information.
No, that's a very good question. The other thing is, I'm assuming that, and this doesn't need to be answered now, is that any constitutional amendment, even one that was approved by less than 2/3 of the total membership, still has to be approved by a majority of the voters. I'm assuming that that's still correct, right? Okay. Representative Walter Reisman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if our legal analyst could give us a little quick overview of the rest of New England in terms of how
For the work session?
For the work session, yes.
Okay. Are there any other requests for information for the work session? Okay. I don't have a gavel, but I'm just going to close this public hearing unless there's something else. Okay, and then the next item for public hearing is LD 315, a resolve to require state departments to report on rule changes within state government since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Is that correct, Cheryl?
That's correct.
And Representative Fecto?
I'm letting them in now.
Okay, great.
Good morning.
Good morning, Representative Fecto. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And so we're on LD 315 first. If you want to, you're the sponsor and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and my colleagues on the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I am Justin Fecto, and I proudly represent House District 86, which consists of the western and northern portions of Augusta. Quite a bit has occurred since the 129th legislature adjourned in March of last year. Departments and agencies within state government have been very busy serving various constituencies throughout our state. There have been many ways in which our state government has had to amend its rules in order to conduct ordinary business in these extraordinary times. In ordinary times, the overwhelming majority of routine technical changes still occur with sufficient legislative oversight that includes input from legislators, stakeholders, and the public. In ordinary times, these changes are minor tweaks in order to conduct ordinary business. However, we are no longer living in ordinary times. State government has had to make changes to rules in order to operate in these extraordinary times. I firmly believe it is completely appropriate and good government to take a look at the changes that have occurred. Then, each joint standing committee can transparently view, amend, affirm, carve out what is appropriate only during emergencies, and or reject the changes that have occurred. This important process would allow the public to be involved as well, which is something our constituents have been requesting for nearly a year. To this bill, I would like to submit the following friendly amendment, and inserting the words after department identifying all routine technical changes, adding in the words, and all changes to rules due to action by the governor. This would include any changes to any departments that amended rules to conduct business due to an executive order or similar action. Many of these routine technical changes and changes to rules due to action by the governor, I surmise, have been necessary in order to conduct emergency and extraordinary business. However, they may be insufficient or unnecessary for normal business and normal government action. It can be tough to find, but the Secretary of State does keep and publish a list of the rules changes by week on their website. And I've included the links there. I hope if you get the PDF, you'll be able to click them, or you can search Maine Weekly Rulemaking Notices into your preferred search engine. This bill is to promote transparency, open a dialogue between the committees and the respective departments, include the public, and evaluate rule changes that have been acceptable during an emergency situation, but are not proper for the normal operation of government agencies after a civil state of emergency. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Representative Fecteau. Are there questions for Representative Fecteau from members of the committee? My co-chair, Representative Ann Matlack.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Representative Fecteau. We received testimony from the Secretary of State's office that listed out quite a few changes that they have posted, that they post every week. I'm wondering what the difference is between the regular work of the Secretary of State's office might be and what you are proposing.
I just want to clarify that I understood, Representative. Are you saying what's the difference between them posting these weekly notices and then doing a careful, doing a review in front of the committees? Is that what you were asking?
I'm asking what changes your bill would make to the current practices.
It wouldn't make changes to the current practices. It would just create a vehicle. So it would all happen. So members of the department would come before the committee and just discuss what had been happening really since the COVID-19 pandemic began. It wouldn't really change anything in practice, but it would be a nice way to present everything that's happened within the department before its respective committee.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions for Representative Fecteau? Okay. Thank you, Representative Fecteau. I think now Cheryl, we go to others who are in support of this bill, correct? Is Senator Keim the first one?
Yes,
Okay.
she's the only one we have left right now.
Okay, Senator Keim, good morning. Welcome to State and Local Government.
Good morning. I do have written testimony that I'll share with the committee after, and I'll read you what I have prepared now. Thank you. Good morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I am Lisa Keim, and I proudly represent Senate District 18, which is Northern Oxford County and 2 communities in Androscoggin. I am here to speak in favor of LD 315, Resolved to require state departments to report on rule changes within state government since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. I chose to co-sponsor this legislation because while routine technical changes are not in any way concealed, and as mentioned, are published in some way, during these unprecedented times, the legislative branch of government has been in a state of isolation, while the executive branch has wielded more power than ever. I believe it is important that the legislative branch fulfill its role and be the oversight authority, especially on all rules that legally bind the people of Maine. Though routine rule changes are not necessarily always meant to go before the legislature, I think it's important for each committee of jurisdiction to be given this formal notice, a succinct document that will increase our insight into every change that has been made while we've been quote unquote away. Perhaps after reviewing this information, the committees will determine that some of those changes should have been improved by the legislative branch, or gain peace of mind that all has been undertaken as it should be, or more likely, some measure of both. Either way, this is a simple request that will ensure we are doing our jobs. The executive, legislative, and judicial branches are meant to be co-equal and provide checks on each other. Should committees determine no action is needed, the reports will still serve as useful information tools. However, should committees determine that certain rule changes do warrant the legislative branch's approval, the reports will have helped us to rebalance the powers. I thank you for your consideration of this legislation.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Kime. Are there any questions of Senator Kime? Representative Toole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Kime. So I'm trying to follow along with this bill. In doing so, is it your understanding that this is a reporting just to committees? Is that what you feel the strength of this bill is?
I do. I think it's important on two fronts. One is it's us exercising our role and our power to say, please send us these reports. And then it's, you know, it's a succinct document that each committee is given that's, you know, allows us to look at our areas of oversight and just have that oversight role that we're supposed to have in an easy way.
And with that, I'm assuming this would take place while we're in session or during the interim or during both? How would you see that playing out?
I think it should happen while we're in session. The bill says all of the changes from March 1st, 2020 to November 15th, 2021.
May I interject? I think it would be helpful maybe, and maybe we should just talk about this in the work session, but I think there will need to be a process when we set up a date for them to, that if we do adopt this, that there's a date or a deadline for the reporting of these changes, and then some sort of process where committees next year would review them. Because I'm assuming it will have to be next year since this legislation goes out to November 15th of this year. So those are just things we can discuss in the work session. I just wanted to mention them here. Representative Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if either of the well, I need to direct it to you. So my question is, would a FOA request achieve the same result?
I don't actually think a FOA request would be necessary. We as committees have the right to just ask for this. I think what this bill seeks to do is sort of bring it to our attention that, hey, let's look at this, because it's not our usual step of action necessarily to look at all the routine technical changes that have happened. You know, each committee doesn't necessarily look at those every year, but I think this just is saying, hey, we're in special times. Let's make sure each committee is getting this information for their own, you know, organizations that are underneath, you know, their own purview. So yeah, we wouldn't have to do freedom of access, not the legislative committees.
Any other questions for Representative Copeland? Okay. Any any members, senators or representatives who wish to ask any questions?
Hey, Joe.
Hearing none. I guess. Oh, here we go. Representative Matlack. You're on mute.
Just a quick note for our work session. I would ask that somebody from the Secretary of State's office attend so they can let us know about the list that they compile and what the impact of such a requirement that that the technical changes be parsed out to the various committees and what the work involved might be.
Very good points. That would be very helpful. Any other questions or comments? Representative Reisman. You're on mute, sir.
All right. Try that again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for your testimony, Senator. My question is, I'm looking at the proposed legislation under Section 2, and it says a joint standing committee may submit legislation to the second regular session of the 1/30th legislature. That confuses me a little bit. I'm wondering what the form of that legislation might be.
That might be a better question for the sponsor himself, but the way I view that is that if there are rule changes that the committee of jurisdiction would see that shouldn't be routine technical, therefore they should require our approval, or we see they need to be changed, that we would put out legislation to change rules that we felt were not proper.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Any other information that members would like to have for the work session on this item? Okay. Any other comments, Representative Fecto or Senator Khan, that you want to make before we close this?
Did we ask folks about for, against, neither for nor against?
I will in a second. Any other comments you want to make before we go on to other for or against? Other comments by other people's. Representative Fecto, you have your hand up. So
Thank you, Senator. I wanted to just address Representative Reisman's question. So when some of these changes have gone through, they've been done in an emergency type of way where they're for extraordinary times. And so while they may be routine technical, the changes may not be specific to normal operating rules versus emergency operating rules or rules specific to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we may need to, or the committees may need to kind of parse them out into separate things where this is normal operating and this is what happens when dealing with the COVID-19, or saying, hey, we no longer need this, or, oh, this is really great to know, or why did this change happen? And it's really could be an important review for the committee to saying, what sparked this change? And then the department would come before you and say, oh, these 4 things happened, and we felt that this rule was appropriate in order to address that.
Representative Reisman, did you want to add any additional comments, sir?
Actually, I would ask if perhaps our legal analyst could give us an idea of how much more time this would take our committee to review this information if it were to pass.
And I think that will be consistent with what Representative Matlack had inquired of having somebody from the Secretary of State's office to discuss that as well. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Do we have anybody, Cheryl, that wants to speak against?
I have nobody in the waiting room for this bill.
And no one, so there is no one present to speak against, and is there anyone present to speak neither for nor against?
I have no one in the waiting room for that either.
Okay, so subject to anybody else having questions or comments, I'm going to close the public hearing on this item and move on to the third item of the day, which is also Representative Fecto's bill. Lynn, do you want to give us the title of that bill?
Yes, Senator. The title of the last bill is an act to limit state legislators to lifetime totals of 16 years of legislative service.
Okay. Representative Fecto?
Thank you, Senator. It's great to see everybody again. Good morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and my colleagues on the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I am Justin Fecto, and I proudly represent House District 86, which consists of the western and northern portions of Augusta. On Tuesday, November 2nd, 1993, the Maine people were asked on question 1 by referendum, do you favor changes in Maine law limiting the number of terms which may be served by Maine's state legislators, Secretary of State, Treasurer, Attorney General, and State Auditor proposed by citizen petition? With 159,785 votes, 67.56% of Maine voters affirmed their desire to term limit their state legislators and constitutional officers. Voters believed they were, quote, limiting the number of terms which may be served, but it ended up being a limit on consecutive terms. In state statute, a legislator, quote, may not serve more than 4 consecutive terms, end quote, as a member of the House of Representatives or state senator. The reason my bill, LD 321, proposes limiting legislators to a lifetime total of 16 years of legislative service is to respect both the 1993 question and current state statute. I believe we can both limit the number of terms while respecting the limit of 4 two-year terms for a representative or senator. While we have hard evidence that 67% of Mainers supported term limits for state offices in 1993, there is evidence to suggest the desire to term limit elected officials of all kinds may be even greater today. In 2013, a Gallup survey said 75% of Americans support term limits for members of Congress. In a 2017 McLaughlin and Associates poll, 69% of Mainers said they supported a constitutional amendment that would place term limits on members of Congress. The same question was asked in a survey to Americans in 2018, and 82% supported term limits. A political spectrum survey website called isidewith.com has collected survey answers from Mainers since 2013. It found that 80% of Mainers support term limits for Congress. In a 2020 US term limit survey of Mainers between July 27th and August 2nd, 75% answered they support term limits for members of Congress. So to pre-answer some questions I may receive, won't term limits just embolden lobbyists? I do not believe so. The lobby's influence rests with their relationships with members. Rotating members of the legislature, especially within leadership and committee chairs, means the lobby will have to constantly re-engage members of the legislature to build relationships. Additionally, there are already strict restrictions on contributions from the lobby to candidates. Isn't institutional knowledge important at the State House? Yes, it is. And I believe 16 years is an extremely long time for a citizen legislator. I am much more capable as a legislator in my second term as my first term, but I'm not entirely sure how much more affected I would be with 26 years of service, for instance, instead of 16. Additionally, nothing is preventing long-serving members from coaching, mentoring, advising, or even serving as caucus staff. Aren't elections, in a sense, term limits? No, they are not. The power and advantage of incumbency is extreme. in a competitive district such as my own, I started my re-election campaign with an extreme advantage. When it came to fundraising, I had built a relationship with hundreds of people willing to donate to political candidates. I had built a relationship with hundreds of people willing, excuse me, read the same line twice. As far as data, I had access to all of my door-to-door data where I had built relationships with constituents. Frankly, I knew the recipe to win my district. The lobby and opposition party knew this. Otherwise, they would have dropped thousands of dollars into my race to defeat me. Additionally, while it's clear that Mainers and all Americans overwhelmingly support term limits, it appears they don't support them more than voting for the opposition party. In my district, even if Republicans in my district were upset with me, beating me in a primary would be an extremely tough task when I could sequester the insider support I needed to win. In Congress, on the Republican side of the aisle, it's why you see the re-elections for unpopular members, such as Senators Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham. Voters support term limits, but it appears they support their political party more. In summary, I think it's important to live up to the intent of the 1993 referendum. I think it's important to live up to Maine having a purely citizen legislature. It's clear to see that limiting the number of total terms for elected officials receives strong bipartisan support. I believe it would selflessly signal to our constituents that we are capable to living up to the 1993 referendum by limiting our own power. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Are there questions for Representative Fecteau by members of the committee? Okay, Senator Claxton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there any court rulings on the intent of what was passed in 1993 versus what we ended up living with? And has anybody done the homework to help understand why 1996 versus 2000 versus 2020? Thank you.
Okay, so those are more questions that you would like to have answered at the work session, or you want them answered now?
Well, if Representative Fecteau can speak to them now, that'd be great. But yes,
Okay.
those are questions I think I'd like to have answers to before we vote.
Okay. Representative Fecteau, did you want to respond?
I really think that's appropriate for analysts to come in and give a super nonpartisan and legal answer as opposed to mine.
Okay. Representative Matlack, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. My question is, would this be, would the term limits be effective as of the date? Would people who had served previously, would they be restricted at that point of initiation of this legislation? Or is it going forward? Oops.
And thank you, Representative, for the question. This is actually something I was hoping I was asked. It says right in there that this section applies to terms of office that begin on or after December 3rd, 1996. But this is something that this is essentially the committee's bill now. So if the committee wants to, amend that to make sure that it's new members, I believe, unless there's statute otherwise or court rulings otherwise, that it would be within the legislature's the committee's purview to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, Representative Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had several questions with that, and I think Representative Matlack covered one of them, but I had a couple of others. The first one being is, do you think this will or would require another constitutional amendment per se, or is it in keeping with the existing constitutional change that voters approved 25, 30 years ago now? That's the first one. If you want to take that first, we'll go to the other ones.
I can take that right now, Representative.
Yeah.
Voters are unable or voted on state statute. They did not vote on a constitutional change. And so that referendum was to amend or add something into state statute.
I got you. Well, thank you. The other question is, you've included constitutional officers, with the exception of governor. Did you have any thoughts about including a lifetime cap on the number of years a governor could serve?
That has not really been in my consideration this time. It's why I left the constitutional officers. I think it's a different animal because essentially we're elected by the public in the legislative branch. I wanted to leave the executive branch alone for this, and I wanted to leave constitutional officers, since Maine is a unique character as far as how it elects its constitutional officers.
I see. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that, for sure. And I had a third question, but if I remember it before we get done, I will raise my hand again.
Okay, Representative Donna Dorr.
Thank you, Senator. I'm just wondering if someone can put a list of current representative and senators that have exceeded the number of years that Representative Fetko is suggesting.
That would be helpful, and to put everything in context at the work session. I think that's very good. And I have a question. I have a question for our analysts for the work session. Is it constitutional to have a statute that limits people retroactive to 1996? There might be an issue regarding ex post facto legislation, and I think we should be clear on what we're allowed to do constitutionally and what we're allowed and what we're not allowed to do. Representative Reisman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, the last question there about current legislators that might be near that limit. Can we look at perhaps some of the ones in the past who may want to come back? Understand what I'm asking?
Well, we could have a list of legislators that maybe retired in the last 5 or 6 years that had done 16 or more years of service. If that's possible, I don't want to put too much of a burden, but we could probably extend it out like that so you can see what pool you might be talking about.
That would be, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to, whatever information people need, that's great. So yeah, there are a couple of constitutional issues for me in terms of both the ex post facto issue and whether this needs to be a constitutional amendment or not, but I guess some of those legal questions we can talk about in the work session. Are there other people who wish to speak for this item?
Yes, we have Representative John Connor.
Representative Connor, welcome to State and Local Government.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Well, good morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and distinguished colleagues of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I'm Representative John Connor, proud to represent District 58, part of Lewiston. And it is an honor to speak today in favor of LD 321, an act to limit state legislators to a lifetime total of 16 years of legislative service. Quite simply, I believe that term limits ought to mean something. As it stands now, Maine's term limits law doesn't place a limit on the number of terms that a legislator may serve. They only place a limit on consecutive terms served. I believe in an absolute limit and absolute cap. I think that's what Maine voters thought they were getting in 1993 when they voted in favor of a simplified referendum question that simply asked, do you favor changes in Maine law limiting the number of terms which may be served by Maine's state legislators, Secretary of State, Treasurer, Attorney General, and State Auditor proposed by citizen petition? The key words in that question were limiting the number of terms. And we all now know that the number of terms an individual legislator may serve is limitless, so long as they take a term off every now and then or move from chamber to chamber. In Maine, we have a citizens legislature. That very feature keeps us as elected officials representative of the constituents that we represent. Fresh ideas and fresh perspectives help ensure that members of this body don't become insulated from the experiences of everyday Mainers. Those of us who serve in these roles do it as an act of public service. We volunteer and sacrifice time away from our jobs and our families in order to be here. Amending the law to enforce actual term limits will ensure that sacrifice in public service is spread to a more diverse set of Mainers over time, increasing the number of people and the perspectives that help to write our laws. I don't think it's healthy for the same small group of individuals to wield power for an extended period of time. And I believe true, enforced, finite term limits promote greater participation in our democratic form of representative government. For these reasons, I am proud to speak in favor of this proposal and urge the committee's favorable consideration. I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Connor. Any questions for Representative Connor? Yes, Representative Dorr.
Thank you, Representative Quanah. The question I have for you, is, don't we as voters in Maine already have the right to not vote for a particular legislator if we don't like he or her, him or her? And isn't that in fact a way to limit their term?
Well, thank you very much, Representative Dorr. And I'm going to revert back to the sponsor, Representative Fecto's answer to that very question. You know, the incumbents do have such an advantage when it comes to, you know, the election, that I think that there does need to be some sort of term limits involved with this. Again, going right back to what Representative Fecto said, that there is such an unfavorable advantage for incumbents. And yes, voters can vote out who they don't like, but that is an extreme uphill battle, I believe, and that's why I in favor of this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Representative Toole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I remembered my third question from earlier, so I'll ask it to Representative Connor. As others have said, we kind of need a list of folks that have been here and left since 1996. Do you have a general sense in your area or elsewhere how many folks we'd be talking about or have run for legislature again since they termed out? Or do you have a general idea of where what you think the number of folks coming back would be or is? Or I guess in the sense, do you see as we have a problem?
Thank you, Representative Toole. And in drafting or in co-signing this and then, you know, doing the research on it, granted, I'm not an analyst. I'm just a state guy here in Lewiston, but my precursory research showed that there was roughly 20 to 25 individuals that have served over the 16 years. You know, that's going back in Maine's history. So I didn't delve too deep into it. I'm just, you know, really listening to the constituents here in my district that have answered, you know, certain polls and have talked to me and reached out and said that, you know, they clearly want a true finite term limits, not just consecutive term limits. So my co-sponsor of this bill is primarily an answer to my local constituents, Representative.
Well, thank you for that. And I did a poll on this as well last week. And one of the things that came out of that was people that I've heard from, many feel 16 years is too long. I was wondering what your thoughts on that were.
Again, thank you, Representative Toole. I personally, I don't think 16 years is too long. I think the ability to let a legislator work in both chambers for the full term in each, I think it's great experience. It gives them breadth of experience and it helps build on the knowledge base and the ideas. So I would disagree with those individuals that say 16 years is too long. I think 16 years is adequate and just the right recipe.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone else, Cheryl, that's listed in favor of the bill?
No, not in favor. We
Okay,
have an against.
anyone that wishes to speak neither for nor against?
We have somebody that wishes to speak against the bill, and that's Penelope Hamlin.
Okay, so is there anyone that wishes to speak neither for nor against? Cheryl?
There is not.
Okay, so anyone that wishes to speak against? Ms. Hamblin from the League of Women Voters, welcome again.
Hi, yes, hello again.
And you have the floor.
Thank you for the floor. Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlock, members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. Yes, I'm Penelope Hamblin, glad to be back before you this morning. I'm a resident of South Portland, and I'm here today as a volunteer on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Maine. I'm testifying in opposition to LD 321. The League of Women Voters of Maine is a nonpartisan political organization that has been working for 100 years or more to encourage informed and active participation in government. We never support or oppose any political party or candidate. Because we believe that term limits adversely affect the representativeness, accountability, and effective performance of the legislature, we have long opposed them. We worked in opposition to term limits when this issue came before the citizens of Maine in 1993 and again in 2007. Our original objections have only been reinforced by Maine's experience since term limits went into effect in 1996. Term limits violate the ultimate right of voters to choose the representatives who best serve the needs of their district and the state of Maine. By disqualifying experienced, knowledgeable, and capable legislators, term limits make our government less responsible, less accountable, and less effective. They weaken the legislative branch and disrupt the balance of power between the executive and the legislature. By imposing a lifetime cap on the number of terms served, LD 321 would further erode the accumulation of expertise in the legislature. The value of a long-serving legislator is up to the voters to decide. Researchers at MIT found that legislative effectiveness rises sharply with tenure due to on-the-job learning. They found no evidence that effectiveness declines with tenure, even out to 9 terms. Under our current system of term limits, the policy expertise formerly reposed in legislative committees has been ceded to executive branch department heads, lobbyists, and partisan professional staff. In addition, term limits have effectively restructured the bicameral relationship between the House and the Senate, with the Senate becoming much more influential. Because many senators previously served in the House, they are more experienced and power has migrated to the Senate. We believe term limits should be repealed. This bill takes us in the opposite direction, doubling down on a bad idea and making it worse. We urge you to vote ought not to pass on LD 321, and thank you for listening to me and granting me this time. I would be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hamblin. It's a pleasure always. Any members of the committee wish to ask questions? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, Cheryl, that wishes to speak?
There is not.
Okay. Are there members of the committee that want to have any specific information provided at the work session on this item? Representative Toole?
Thank you. And I think what others have said.
You're going to have to unmute yourself.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what others have said is in keeping with getting a list of those who may be in jeopardy of hitting that lifetime cap, whether it be 5 years or since the term limits law was passed. I think it would be important to have a handle on what the pool of folks impacted is theoretically. Or that have crossed that 16 mark line. So I think that would be important, that if it's going to be a retroactive thing, then we would have to know that information.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I said previously, I have some concerns about being retroactive to 25 years ago. But anyway, any other questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none, I would close this public hearing. Lynn, any other items on today's agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, there are no other items on the committee's agenda. Let me just double check before I say that. But yes, I think the committee is done.
Okay, and why don't you let the let the public know when is the next time we're meeting? And then Representative Head, I'll have you speak. I
believe that's the role of the clerk. Lynn is our analyst. She comments on legislation eventually, but Cheryl's the one who keeps us in line.
Okay.
Well, look at that. We meet on Wednesday at 10 o'clock this coming Wednesday, and we are listening to 6 bills on Wednesday, -1. So it'll be 5 bills as a work session on Wednesday.
Okay, great. That's a little preview. Representative Francis Head, thank you for being
Yes,
patient.
I would just like to make a comment. I'm so proud of Donna Dorr for going through what she's going through. And I'd like to say that if you believe in prayer, add Donna to your list. I love her.
That is very kind, and I think we all join in those thoughts. Thank you very much, Representative Head and Representative Dorr. We join those prayers and those thoughts. We think a lot of you. So we're right there with you. Any other questions or comments? See none, I would say we're adjourned. Thank you.
See you all Wednesday.